What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Rumpier Sports, bringing to you once again. We got the Lineup Builder Show. I'm here with my guy Jordan. I gotta apologize, Jordan and I. We've already been talking for 10 minutes, but we're talking to each other. I never clicked the go live button, so that's on me. First time I think I've ever done that, which is kind of wild. But Jordan, how's it going, my man? Let's bring you in. How are you doing today?
No, I'm good. I'm excited to do this one for real this time. I think the most surprising thing you said when we were just talking to each other here before going live was you personally guaranteeing the Nuggets to win the NBA Finals. I didn't expect you to come out with such a bold statement like that.
Well, I mean, on that note, Jordan, wouldn't it be awesome to have let's have Jokic against Embiid?
Oh yeah.
Then we see the
storyline.
Yeah, I mean that would be. I think there's so many good storylines. I mean, it could, like, if the Lakers get there, even if you get a rematch, Dubs Celtics, which I don't think is going to happen. There's so many good storylines, but so we already got our base built up, and I kind of went on a little bit of a rant. I'm going to sum that rant up so I don't fully go back through it, but the basis of it was the biggest edge we have, in my opinion, during these 2-game slates is there is a flaw in projections. And it's not due to anything or any site being bad or being good or anything like that. It's just because these series, they're a true chess match where you have a game 1 and then, what adjustments are the coaches going to make in game 2, game 3, game 4. You got to be dialed in, watching these, picking up on things, and predicting what the next move is going to be. And I think that's where we've had a lot of success over here at Rumpier Sports and using Sabersim's optimizer. And we saw that last night. So we were 0.25 points off the optimal. For me, myself, it was an awesome night anyway. It would have been a lot more fun if those lineups would have held. But it's just picking up on these little things and making these big adjustments. So we've already ran the base build, and I'll go back through right out of the gate. Kind of one of my problems when we're looking at these projections. The first one I saw, I think we had Josh Okogie in there, and then Campaign. Yeah. And Campaign's been throughout this series when Chris Paul went out. I've had the biggest problem with him because he's always been chalk in these series, and he's always highly projected. And the problem is when you're creating a projection around a guy like Campaign, who is typically someone who comes off, he's a role player who comes off the bench, runs the second unit. He's running that unit with one of Kevin Durant or Devin Booker off the court. And so what happens is he has a much higher usage rate. He's running the offense, usually Book or KD playing off ball. He can create. He can do a lot more things. The opportunity is there. The problem starting is you're starting alongside Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and they're doing everything. Mm-hmm. Everything is running through them. The ball is in their hands. Even if Campaign dribbles it up, Devin Booker comes over to him and says, "Hey, kid, give me the ball. Go sit over there in the corner." He played 31 minutes last game, which was the highest he has in the series, which is great. We can't apply that same point per minute projection rate on him when he's coming in bringing a 9 to 10% usage rate. I do see, like right now, I can see your guys' projection. It has actually come down a little bit, which is nice. But I'm telling you, Jordan, I've been very aggressive with under projecting the guys like him, taking him down 7 to 8 points, sometimes even more. And I'll explain why and what I'm doing with that and how I'm using Sabersim to create these groups that really help me mitigate risk and highlight the players I want to play. Because when I look at this, our value plays, we should expect floor outcomes from them. Our studs, it's a superstar league. Our studs, Jason Tatum, Jokic, KD, Book, we should expect and project ceiling outcome ranges for them. And in your standard projections just aren't going to do that. And so many people just run, they run the projections, they press optimize and they go. And so that's where you can create a massive edge for yourself by just taking advantage, by over projecting things, under projecting things. And that's what I've done. I've had a lot of success with it. What are you seeing here on these base builds?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't agree enough. It's really a situation where, the average projections in the Sims are using a big body of the regular season data that is going to get increasingly a little less reliable as the playoffs go on. Now, one thing that Sabersim does that is really cool, our data scientist team has worked really hard on this, is we have what's called a decay rate, which is basically how do we value new information coming in against the body of work we have from the regular season. And we adjust pretty well, especially compared to the industry when we have that new data coming in, which is why, Cameron Payne maybe is dropping now a little bit more as we understand his usage in the playoffs with Chris Paul out compared to what that looked like in the regular season. But it's a hard thing to adjust to in any given model. And, one of the things that jumped out to me here as well is when these guys are adjusting to kind of these new rules, especially as the series goes on and we've got teams playing in elimination games, their salaries are coming down as well, which is making those average projections even more impactful here. A guy like Cameron Payne now down at 4.7 or Aaron Gordon at 5.9. I mean, they're going to get jammed into a lot of lineups when you're just press and go on the projections and building lineups. And when I've been doing my builds, I've been doing the exact same thing. I'm treating a lot of times, even sometimes the 4th, 5th guys in the starting lineup here, but definitely guys like 6, 7, 8 off the bench. I treat their projections a lot of times as kind of that floor, that ceiling, about as high as it can get, and ask if they get their average, right? Can they be in the GPP winning lineup? Whereas the guys at the top end here, the high salary guys, I'm bumping those projections up a lot of times. And different slates, you end up with a different lineup construction. I've been playing a lot of kind of, I would say, a little bit more balanced builds because of that. But I'm interested to see how some of the builds work out here on this slate today.
Yeah, very, very good. Let's so I'm gonna walk through my entire process. We only have a few 2-game slates left, and I want to try to help the people get a dub before these 2-game slates are gone. I'm gonna let's go. If you've watched our show before, I've gone through my process. I think we take it very similar to that. Let's start with Boston. So Boston is life is on the line. It's a must win game for them tonight. I was really kind of frustrated. I was on a nice heater betting. I think I was 13-1, something like that. And I went heavy on that slate. So a couple days ago, and I couldn't see a scenario where, so this would have been when the Nuggets were at home, they got an easy win, and Boston was at home. I money line. I rarely ever run like 2-team favorite money line parlays. I just think they're kind of traditionally they sucker you in, a sucker bet. But I thought the odds were just too good to pass up because I could get it right at even money. So there's no juice on that. And I just thought I couldn't see a scenario where either team won. Well, we happen to be right with your Nuggets, and they definitely had a nice game there and got the easy win. But Boston, their shooting was bad. Philly was the better team that game. Maxey was awesome. You got to expect them to come in and sell out is kind of the term I've been using. So bringing them up. All right. So Tatum 48. Let's start with Jason Tatum. So he on the series is averaging, hold on, let me pull up my sheet. So he's averaging throughout the series 39 minutes and 54 DraftKings points throughout this series. So like our standard projection, we're already under that baseline average, and they're going to sell out for this game, meaning I think he could play 42 minutes, 43 minutes, 44. We saw Jalen Brunson yesterday play all 48 minutes. If Joe Mazzulla was watching that game, hopefully he had it on. He's got to play Tatum 42 plus minutes. So this is a spot where I talk about I want ceiling range outcome. Let's go over to the percentile there. So 85th percentile is 60. I want to go let's use that. Let's use his 85th, between the 75th and 85th percentile. I think is very fine. And we'll run these builds, and you'll see, what I'm talking about. Jaylen Brown. So the problem with him is I'm fine. So when we look at, so he's averaging 37 minutes and 37 DraftKings points. He hasn't been good in this series at all. That could change. It's Jaylen Brown, but it's just they've done such a good job on him matchup wise. So if you just compare those things to the average of this series, these baseline projections are actually higher on Brown over Tatum. and I would rather be under, slightly under on Jaylen Brown. And he is, what's Jaylen Brown's price? I'm trying to look on the sheet.
Yeah,
because I know his price came way down. 7-9. So like he's gonna sucker a lot of people in there to play him. So let's keep him where he's at. Maybe don't even change it. I think we should keep it where he's at. So here's where I've been creating a group now. I've been creating a group of Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, and Derek White. This 3-man backcourt group. On the average through the series, and I only want to play at max two of the 3. So that's a standard rule that I haven't been setting too many group rules, but this has been one of them, and I felt very good about this group rule when we have this series up with the Suns and Nuggets, mainly because we don't want, if we over project these 3, we don't want all 3 of them running in there and eliminating a Devin Booker or Jamal Murray from the other game, because those have been 2 awesome plays. So yeah, we have that group rule. That's something I'm going to run tonight. Let's look at their projections. So Smart has averaged just under 35 minutes, 28 fantasy points. Brogdon has averaged 29 minutes and 29 fantasy points, and Derek White has averaged 31 minutes and 17 fantasy points. So he's had a rough series. I don't want to this is another thing. Like, you don't want to just take these averages and apply them to the projections. That's not what I'm saying at all. He's had a rough series. And so with Derek White, I think we just leave him alone. We just leave the projection where he's at. Brogdon, I think the 26.6, I think that's fine. I think we could go 27. But honestly, what Boston wants is they want to give Marcus Smart, I think, a lot of minutes. That's the guy they trust. They do trust Derek White too, but it's Smart who can defend, 1 through 5. He's been taking a ton of threes. So let's bump Smart up just a little bit. 29.5, I think, is fine. Something like that. Yeah. Then Al Horford has been, obviously, if you're just looking at the results, he had a really, really tough game 5. I think he was 0 for 8, 0 for 7 from 3-point range. I mean, he just was not good at all. And but he's been the guy where it's he had 4. If we go back to game 4, 38 minutes, 40 DraftKings points. So it's this is a guy they trust. He's just got to stay out of foul trouble, and he's got to hit his shots. I want to actually be higher on Al Horford, because at 25.1 at 5.5K, he's not going to really hit a lot of lineups. Are you still with me, Jordan?
I'm here. I've just lost my
camera
good here.
Yeah, no, you're good. You can still your computer still works, right?
Yeah, let me plug it back in. I'll get my camera back in a sec here.
Okay, so when I'm looking through this and we look at the Boston side, here's how I kind of see them playing tonight. They're going to run. They should run a tight rotation, really, really, really tight, and it's got to be Tatum. Tatum is the guy. So I'm good with these projections, how we have them set right now, and let's go to the Philly side then.
Perfect. Yeah. Real quick, I was just going to add one thing here. One thing that I like to do, I'll let these ownership projections sometimes guide me a little bit here. Guy like Derek White, price is coming down. You mentioned he's not playing very well. He's a really good example of a cheaper guy that the average projections are going to love. I don't hate the idea of, against the 45% projected ownership, just taking the stand there that, maybe that variance does not correct. And, on the road here in an elimination game continues to play a little poorly, doesn't have the shot there. So in some of these spots where I'm unsure, I will let that ownership number kind of guide me on which way I want to play the variance. So might be a guy I end up dropping a little bit, but.
Another way where so if you pull that Boston projection up, I guess in my mind, how we're kind of mitigating our exposure to him is we bumped up. So we have that rule in place, and we bumped up Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon. So we know that we can only have 2 of those guys in there, and so that has to limit to some point, maybe Derek White's ownership. So that and I it's not like you do this once and you run with it. I do this 3 or 4 different times, messing around with what I think it should be at. So let's go to Philly. So the Philly side's been interesting because if you compare Joel Embiid to Nikola Jokic, the price difference is kind of wild. But if you look at optimal builds throughout the series, so we've had there was one game 2. These two teams they played on different days, but game 1, 3, 4, 5, it's been a 2-game slate. Nikola Jokic has been optimal in every single one of those, which is incredible. It just shows how incredible he's been. Again, Embiid coming off one of his better performances last game. He was 37 minutes, 54 DraftKings points. So in the other game too, like he had, 46 minutes, but that includes overtime, 59 DraftKings points. What I saw, so some adjustments on the Philly side. We saw, so Jalen McDaniels completely out of the rotation. Niang, his minutes are going way down, and then Paul Reed is almost completely out of the rotation as well. So a few things right there. Those guys, I'm just going to bump them, way down. Just not a huge factor. PJ Tucker, he's playing heavy minutes, but again, he's out there for defense, so I think that's fine. DeAnthony Melton, he's been kind of the guy that, he's had one good game, and that's about it. They like him out there for defense. Again, he's a guy I would rather be under on, a floor type performance. So like when you look at his 25th percentile, I think we use that number, or maybe slightly above it. I think that's very fair for this route. Now, he does have one outlier performance. So this is where I might run 2 subset builds where one, I just have him way under projected. I don't even want to worry about him. And then I might have another where I key in on some of these values like him, where I know I'm just going to fade them in my first builds and bring them back a little bit. But that one game, was such a perfect game for him. I'm fine being under on him because I think we're going to see. We saw Doc Rivers go to Daniel House, which I think was a really nice adjustment just to bring in more offense. And we saw it like Boston was like forcing 3-point shots and they weren't hitting them. And then they couldn't stop Philly on the other side. So like you'd get an occasional Boston run, but they could not stop any of Philly's runs at all. And House was a big reason. It's not like he had a crazy game like Lonnie Walker did in the game the other night, but he was very impactful in the minutes that he had. Now, I don't want to go crazy on a guy like Daniel House, but is he even projected? Let's see. On Philly side.
Oops.
Yeah, so he's one where I would put his projection in line with maybe slightly under DeAnthony Melton. Like 12.5. And who he might not even hit at 12.5, but I think it's a fine project. And if he hits at a high rate, we're going to adjust that. We're not going to keep him in there because we don't want any of these random scrub value guys. We don't want to be overly exposed to any one of them. So then, all right. So a few guys I want to bump. Harden, 43. If we look at what his average is, so he's averaging 40 minutes and 52 DraftKings points. Now it's slightly inflated because one of those games, Joel Embiid was not in the game. However, I think look at last game, 47. He had 78 in the game with Joel, 42. I think we bump him up. I think let's go over to the percentile.
75th, yeah.
75th. Yep. Let's roll with that. I like it. Joel Embiid, honestly, I think keeping him under 60, but I think bumping him up 3 or 4 points is fine here. I prefer Jokic, and I want to get even more aggressive with Jokic, but Embiid 9,600, we have to have some interest. So give him a 58 piece. I think that's fair. Maxey, I want to bump up too because we should see a tight rotation. Maxey was an absolute hero for them last game. 46 DraftKings points, 42 minutes. Maxey is going to play 42 plus minutes tonight unless he gets into foul trouble. He's averaging 39 minutes a game in this series. I want to be go over to these percentiles again. So let's give them the 85th. I love what they're doing with them, and he creates a problem for this Boston team. And then Tobias Harris too. He's going to play a ton of minutes. I think we get him over 30 for sure. 34 to 35, I think is the perfect number. So what we're doing is we're just isolating these studs basically in this series. Let's go over to the next one. So let's start with Phoenix, because Phoenix I think is really interesting. And let's first start with a group. So here's what I've been doing on the Phoenix side, because we talk about this being a chess match. And so how can we predict these things? And this is mainly if you're multi-entering. If you're running one build, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But if you're running like 20 in a 20 max, or like 40, 50, or 150, this is where I think these rules can really come into play. So on the Phoenix side, we have all of these scrub pieces. TJ Warren's one. Add him in there. Landry Shamet is one. Terrence Ross is another. Josh Okogie, throw him in there. Torrey Craig isn't really even playing, so we'll keep him out. Yeah, that's a good. Let's just keep that group, and let's put no more than one. Yep. Perfect. So now let's start with KD and Devin Booker. So KD is averaging 40. So both of them are averaging 42 minutes a game right now. And both of them are averaging. So Kevin Durant's averaging 56 DraftKings points. Devin Booker is averaging 56 DraftKings points. So this is where I think and even us. So look at RPS. We're slightly higher, but like we're not even coming close to like what their average is. And it's so hard to account for the usage and the fact that they are the entire team. This is a must-win game for the Suns. They're going to play just like the Jalen Brunson playing 48 minutes. I'm not saying that these guys are going to play 48 minutes, but I would not be surprised if KD and Book both played 45 tonight. So let's go over to the percentiles. Let's use their 85th percentile. Now, this is getting way over on them, but their prices have come up. And it's going to make a difference here at the end. Now, DeAndre Ayton, he's questionable, I believe.
He is,
actually.
Yeah.
So he was actually optimal. I think he's been a bad play in this series, but he actually had his best game last game, and he ended up being optimal. So he played 32 minutes and got 32 DraftKings points. And we're projected, and that's been like his best game, like is by far his best game. And projection sites have him for like even us. So 32. I'll probably get with Captain later today, and I'll tell Captain that projection is just a bad projection. It's too high relative to his role right now. They're really splitting him and Jock Landale's minutes. Mm-hmm. That's been what they've been picked up on. I think maybe Landale's been playing really good, but I think they just want to keep some fresh bodies on Jokic because Jokic is getting whatever he wants. So if we go over to this percentile, so DeAndre Ayton I am much closer to his 25th percentile than where we're currently at. If you want to, so let's bring him back a little bit, because at 5,700, if you just keep him at that, he's going to hit a ton of builds. Yep. And you're going to get forced into this mid-range build. And I want as many studs as we can possibly get. And I want to roll the dice with some of these scrubs. So I think 26 is fine. 25, 26. Now Campaign is the next one. So Campaign, again, had one of his better days or games, at least minutes wise, 31 minutes. I've been under his 25th percentile. I think for purposes of this, let's put 20.8 in there, just the exact 25th percentile. But I mean, because if we just look at what he's been doing, let me pull up his Campaign, 31 minutes, 17 DraftKings points in game 5, 25 minutes, 15 DraftKings points in game 4. 30 minutes, 18 DraftKings points in game 3. So you get the pattern there. And a lot of that has to do with just he's playing alongside Devin Booker and KD. And one of those two is running the offense and he's standing in the corner. And it's just when we pull in previous data from the regular season where he's actually running the offense, facilitating, creating shots for himself, it's just he's a completely different player right now. Could he go off and have a randomly awesome game? Yeah, I think it's in the realm of outcomes. With where he's been owned at, ownership wise, I want to be under. Now, maybe I get burnt this time, but it's been an absolute printer for me being under on him because he's always 50, 55, 60% owned. And I would rather he's put up similar results as Landry Shamet, 19 Terrence Ross, 19 last game. So it's like I would rather take the 1,500 savings, get me a stud, and go that route. So Jock Landale, I like where we're at with him. I think that's fine. TJ Warren, all those guys. Yeah, so I would be a little under on Josh. Josh Okogie's fine because he's probably not going to hit too many builds. What did he play last game? Okogie played 8 minutes. Yeah, let's get under on Okogie. And here's the other thing I've been doing. So with these scrub pieces, so TJ Warren, let's bring him down to like 15.5. And then let's bring Terrence Ross at like 15, just because they're priced really close together. And then Shamet, you can keep them. You can keep them right there. And now remember our rule here. We're not going to get multiple of these guys into our build because, and here's why I've been doing this. I guess last game, kind of an outlier. So, maybe you can tinker around with this rule, but the game did kind of get out of hand. And actually, this might be something I review once I review that game because Shamet, they went full offense over defense, where we had 23 minutes from Landry Shamet, 20 from Ross, and 15 from Warren. I still like the rule, but there might be some builds that I make where I separate it out a little bit, maybe say no more than 2. It's just I don't want 3 of these guys into that build. But for right now, let's just keep it because I do think these value pieces are risky. But if you're multi-entering, you can credit because I would rather have that other value piece be Jock Landale in there because we know he's had good runs. So it's like when you think of this construction, it's like maybe it's a Devin Booker plus one of like a TJ Warren or Ross plus Landale. Like I like that over like a Warren, Ross, and Booker or KD, if that makes sense.
Yep, agreed.
Let's go to the Nuggets. Now Jokic, this is so. Again, this is where, and Jordan, you should be on my side on this one, but Jokic is averaging 39 minutes and 72 DraftKings points a game. It's, if we go out to a 75th, 85th percentile, I think we use the 75th, 72.3, which is very much in line with his average. What's his ceiling? He's put up an 81 piece, and that was in Phoenix. 73 piece at home, 76 piece on the road. Again, he's crushed in Phoenix. This guy is playing like the true MVP. I think he's been the best player in the playoffs right now. They got to sell out to win this game. I think the Nuggets win the series, and I think this game is going to be tough, but I can't see them losing back in Denver. They've been so good at home, playing at altitude, playing against a team that has to play 2 stars. One of them that's a little bit older, like max minutes. Tough to do at altitude in Denver. So I like that big projection on him. Now here's the difference where I've made. So we know Phoenix is going more offense over defense. That's really helped Michael. I keep calling him Kevin Porter Jr., Michael Porter Jr. And I've been really aggressive on MPJ's projection ever since they made that adjustment, since Monty Williams did. Now, what has Michael Porter Jr. done since that adjustment? 37 minutes, 41 DraftKings points. 41 minutes, 36 DraftKings points. 28 minutes in this last game. The game kind of got out of hand there and might have been in foul trouble, but 36 DraftKings points. He was absolutely a bucket. I want him closer to the 85th percentile. Like, I love MPJ in this spot. Even on the road, I think it's going to be fine. Jamal Murray, I think we keep where he's at. He's been quite volatile in this series. I could see him having a big game, though, but I think we just keep him where he's at. Aaron Gordon, I think he's fine where he's at. KCP, I want to be so KCP is fine, but he's going to be more raw scoring dependent. I think we're fine. Right at I've been putting him right around 20, like 19.5 to 20.5 is kind of where I've been on him. And that's fine. And then I don't want to play Jeff Green. I don't any of the Braun, like any of those guys. I just want to X them out. So we got, let's see, maybe bump Aaron Gordon. So he's last game 36 minutes, 31 fantasy points. So he's going to play. Yeah, he's going to have a big role. I think that's a fair projection on him, though. Like, I don't want to be like Aaron Gordon can have a pretty wide range of outcomes. Like, I don't want to go that crazy on him. So what do you think about these projections or these adjustments so far?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think Aaron Gordon's an interesting one here where he's going to be pretty involved, just rebounding the ball, playing defense. With the way the Nuggets move the ball, he's got a decent assist shares there as well. So if you get a night where he does end up scoring the ball a little bit here, there is upside there. So he's actually a guy I'm pretty comfortable with that projection there as well. I think Jamal Murray has got to be one of the hardest players to project on the entire slate, just because you mentioned it. He is so volatile. I mean, the 25th percentile outcome and the 85th are very within the range of outcomes. I think, if we had the perfect distribution for him, I think he would have one of the wider distributions on the slate here. I do think it's interesting. I was curious if he was negatively correlated to Michael Porter, and he is a bit here. That was kind of maybe what my intuition would say about this. I think there's maybe a potential group there as well, just because, both of those guys are going to have to score to hit their top end, high end upside, and there's only one basketball. So I think I would maybe explore putting in a group there and seeing what some of the builds look like, splitting out Murray and Porter. But I feel pretty good here.
One more comment on that. So I actually like that. So were you saying bring his projection down just a little bit?
Yeah, maybe bring it down a little. I was thinking about that's fine because we're already bumping Porter up. But I also think maybe a group there would make some sense too.
I like that. I actually might make some tweaks to the other group I had. Just looking at some of these optimals, and this series specifically has been a star-driven series, and a lot of it has to do with this game between the Nuggets and Phoenix. We know these guys are playing 42, 43 minutes, and that's going to show tonight. They're going to play, could play the entire game. It's not out of the realm of outcomes. And what happens when Aaron Gordon projected up? You got these mid-range guys projected up. That's going to force in a lot of mid-range builds. And just look at these optimals. So the last slate that we had this on, you had KCP was optimal. We had Terrence Ross, 3,100 optimal. That was actually, so out of all the optimals, that was one where there was more mid-tier guys and there was only one. Two. It was a Jokic, Tatum, and then you did have a few mid-range pieces with Maxey, Tobias Harris, DeAndre Ayton. These other builds, though, if we go back to Game 4 series, Josh Okogie was in there. Jock Landale, 3,400, 3,200. Okogie only put up 12.5. So, when we talk about those 12.5 projections on these super cheap players, they matter. It definitely matters to have that guy in there when we're talking about a full stud and value build. Landry Shamet was also in that build, 3,500, 21.5 DK points. Those value pieces allowed people to get Jokic, Tatum, and Harden in that build. And it went off for almost 350. Who knows if anyone played it, but it was the optimal 350 DraftKings points on that slate. And then even if we go back to Game 3, you had PJ Tucker with 15.75 fantasy points. Jock Landale, 3,100, 18.75. So that's why this series specifically, getting these value pieces right, even though they feel gross, and you may not even see that everyone loves the flame emoji. It's like if I go in Discord and it was Jimmy Butler didn't have a flame emoji by his name, and everyone was crying about it. And it's like, guys, you got to get away from that in this series. We're looking for a lot of these guys. We're looking at raw scoring, floor scoring. We want that flame to come from your Jokic, from your. I guess Jimmy would be included, but Jimmy ended up doing enough. So I'm with you there. What group are you thinking? Is it more of only 2 of 3 of Gordon, MPJ, and Murray, so that
I've got 1 of 2 with Murray and Porter. Just 2 guys that are going to need to score to hit that 75th percentile outcome. That's the way I've got it. I don't hate the idea of putting Gordon in there as well. I think that's fine. Splitting it out a little bit.
Add Gordon in there and then add it no more than 2, because I don't want to maybe it's I get it there. It would be hard for Murray and MPJ to get there together because they're both, scoring dependent players, but I don't want to fully limit it just because it's a 2-game slate. So I think I kind of like this rule, adding Gordon in there as well. But
cool, I like it.
Yeah, let's run this and let's just see. Run maybe let's go run 50 builds and pool size of 500 or something. Because I've only been running I don't actually like running 150 on these slates. I don't think you need to if you have the right strategy in place. Because what can happen is just your return can be diminished substantially, because more often than not, we're going to get chops on these slates. Like you could have the random build, like even yesterday. So it was a chop up top for like, I think 17.5. When I was up in first, it was like an 11.5 way chop. And I only ran 20 builds last night. And I just think dial in your strategy, whatever it is. You don't have to run 150 when doing these. I mean, you can if you have the bankroll, but people were like, people argue that if you're not running 150 or maxing out whatever contest you're in, you're losing EV. I disagree with that on certain slates. I think there's certain times where you want to, but this is one where I don't really think you need to. So right up there, so we're getting like we got Tatum and KD. So I like how that looks. The one guy we don't have, and this is why I talk about getting so aggressive with Jokic's projection. We projected him to up to 72.3. He's been optimal every single slate. However, the prices come up. I think he could be really low owned tonight, Jordan. Like you're going to have to force him in or like get very aggressive, because we moved him up to a 75th percentile. Like we might have to bump him up to like 75.
Well, like it's tough at 11.5. Salary is almost becoming a little bit prohibitive there. Like the 72 point projection has to happen for it to pay off. I think you almost, maybe even for him to be optimal, you need him to have like an 80 point night here, or you're going to need to get really lucky with like Jock Landale or some of these guys around that 3,500, 4,000 salary range and just happen to get the right ones in your build for it to work out. Or I don't know. It's an interesting, I agree. I think you're right. I think he's probably going to be very low on because it's just way too easy. Booker, Durant, Tatum, Embiid, all these guys save so much salary.
But I do like how this build looks, and here's why. We got Tatum. Tatum is the guy that I think has the most upside for Boston. I think a lot of people would agree with that. We know Marcus Smart. We know the role he has to make. If he hits his threes, he can put up a 40 piece easily. We know we have our rule, so it's we know that. Look at the next build. It's Brogdon, and no Smart. So this is where I'm talking about. These little rules can help guide you when you're building 20, 30, 40 lineups, and you don't have to go and review each and every lineup. That's why I like doing it, and you guys make it easy. But when we look at this, so I like the second build too. We know KD and Devin Booker are going to sell out, and they're going to play 44 minutes. I like the idea of potentially playing them together. I think that's interesting. We know Boston, if they come out and struggle, like if Philly just puts the clamp down, we're going to want to build like this where we have two.
Oh, we just lost your audio. Oh, you're back.
You can hear me? Oh, I don't know why it's let me test this out one more time. All right, is that better?
Yep, we're good.
I got to figure that out. It's not so usually it's Discord. It might be my connection. Like sometimes the connection will go out for 1 second.
Yeah,
I gotta get me hardwired in, Jordan. But yeah, I like what's your thoughts on this? Because I like the makeup of these builds where we're jamming in these studs basically, and they don't look pretty. The prettier builds look like the ones where we have like the bounce with one stud. Those aren't what's typically winning in these series. So I love the idea. Like, can you actually bring up a Jokic build?
Yeah. So we've got one here. Yeah. So, I mean, and this is, I think, going to be kind of the way that these builds end up working, where you've got to find probably two guys under 4K here, and then maybe at least another guy in that 4K range. And he's going to be pretty much your only stud there. So you're going to make a lot of sacrifices. I'm curious, like, do we have any Jokic? So we do have a little bit of Jokic with KD. Some Jokic with Harden seems like a popular kind of build amongst those Jokic types.
And this is where, we talk about like this being a chess match and adjusting, but we still have to adjust. I mean, Price is such a big player in this too. And you're right. Like he might have to hit 80 to be optimal. If we know that the Suns are going to sell out and that KD is going to play 44 minutes, Booker's going to play 44 minutes, Booker's 10K, Kevin Durant's 9,900. We got Jason Tatum, 9,800. that salary there is going to matter if we can get multiple of those pieces in. Now, the build I would be curious in seeing is like a Tatum plus Jokic, which has been optimal.
Oh, lost you again there. We do have one in the pool with Tatum and Jokic here, but I mean, again, Terrence Ross, Jock Landale here. You got to play KCP in that build as well. It's all good.
Jordan, why does this always happen when it's me and you? I don't get it.
I don't know. I don't know.
No idea. And my kids I have no excuses. My kids are gone. They're not in the house. They're at school right now. Like, I would understand if they were here because they're all on their devices, son's playing Fortnite and all that stuff. It takes up bandwidth. But, oh, man. All right, you keep going. What were you saying?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and I think this is going to be kind of the flavor of these builds. If you're going to play Jokic plus another guy, I mean, it's going to be picking like the 4-way parlay of all the guys under 5K here that you're trying to also get right in that build. I think if you're going to take this angle on the slate here, well, now I'm having something weird going on here. The one thing I was looking at is, two guys that we got a lot of. We're getting a lot of Jock Landale. We're getting a lot of Terrence Ross. I think that's a little bit of a factor of those are two names that we just happen to not adjust down in that salary range.
Right.
So I think if you're going to really, whoever those guys that you're going to play under that 4K range are, it's got to be intentional. And it's got to be like, I think that's where you end up taking a bit of a stand on this slate as opposed to taking a stand at the high end range. It's like, these are the two guys that I'm going to put in to a lot of my lineups to make the rest of it work.
So I wasn't going to give this part away, but I might as well. So, because I want your thoughts on it too. Go back to the home screen. So I run it very similar to this, and then I always go back because I like to see who's popping and who's not. Pull up the Suns. I think that's fine. So I will put. Let's just use like 45%. So I'll put on all of those scrub plays. I'll say our max ownership is 45%. So what in my mind that should do is, when the Shamit exposure is built up and we're hitting that cap of 45%, hopefully then it fills in with TJ Warren, then with Terrence Ross. And so we're getting them more mixed in versus just having all Terrence Ross or all TJ Warren. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing that too with the studs. I'll put like a 70% max cap on the studs. So Tatum, 70%, KD, 70%. And because I want, like, my goal is I want a good mix of all the studs that I want exposure to. So who would that be tonight? It would be Jason Tatum, James Harden. It would be Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Embiid, and then Jokic. I want as many mixing and matching of these studs as I can get, with also mixing and matching these value pieces, and then also filling in with I'll monitor to make sure I don't have like. I guess there's some slates where I think actually it was last slate I locked in MPJ. I'm actually fine taking some stands on like an MPJ or like I think it was Tyrese Maxey or Tobias Harris, but I'll still give them like a 70% max range just because I do want that mix and match there with the studs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is kind of the way that my builds have ended up working out most of the time is I get kind of spread out on the top end guys. They're all going to be projected really well. I'm increasing almost all their projections. And then it's, who is the salary relief guy where the script makes sense. And I actually do think Jock Landale makes a lot of sense to be that guy on tonight's slate. I think he's probably amongst every player under 4K, my favorite one on the entire slate here, just because, he's playing well. It seems like it's trending up for him in the elimination game. If we get, like the kind of sleepy DeAndre Ayton doesn't really seem involved in the game like we've gotten a lot in this series, I could see, him playing 25 minutes or something like that, and Ayton end up playing about 25 minutes. So that's really all I'm looking for is just a reasonable script here for one of these guys to have a little bit of minutes upside, or maybe a little bit of like fantasy point per minute or usage upside.
The last thing I do is, and I love this about Sabersim, and I'm old school. I jot it down in a Word doc, but I will highlight Joel Embiid. And I like to see, okay, what are my studs? Am I over correlated with a certain stud? Mm-hmm. And then I also make sure is like, do I have any KD with them? Any Tatum? I like to see what that is. And then if I'm unhappy with, so we have Kevin Durant is in, 41%?
Yep.
10 of the builds. Awesome. That's perfect. Devin Booker. He's in a few of them. Jason Tatum, he's in a few. So by doing this, we can say, okay, with our Embiid builds, we know we have KD in there. We got Devin in there. We got Tatum in there. We got Hart. So, and I go through each one. I say, and then, at the end of the day, I'm happy. I know I can go watch the games. I know which studs I've correlated with who. And so then I'm rooting on these value pieces. Because if the value pieces get there, I know one of these combinations is probably going to get there too, and it's going to put me in a chance to to have that optimal lineup. So unless, of course, like the mid range just goes nuts, and if that happens, which I think a few slates ago, actually it was this slate, I got it completely wrong. I got absolutely dusted, but for me, it was, I'm running 20 in the $4, the 20 max, and I duped those into the 20. And so like my overall exposure isn't that high. And that's what I ran last night. I think tonight, since it is a little trickier, I think I have 40 reserved. And the reason for that is just because we do have more studs on this slate. It's going to be more combinations. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Man, these games are going to be a ton of fun. Do you think your Nuggets can close it out tonight on the road?
Yeah, I hope so. I Game 7 in Denver, you feel good about that. Haven't lost a game in the playoffs at home yet, but you never feel good about a Game 7 period. I think it does just change the feeling of that game a little bit. Stops feeling like a home game and almost feels, Bowl Arena is going to be going nuts if we go to 7, but it's just tough when it's win or go home. I like our shots tonight. The line opened, I think, at Phoenix -4. I'm seeing Phoenix -2.5 now. So it seems like that the lines move towards the Nuggets in every single game of the playoffs as well here, or of this series. So I like our chances here. I think we've played games 3 and 4. You've had Booker, even Durant a little bit, just shooting lights out. I think that's going to regress a little bit here at some point. Did a little bit in Game 5. So all that to say, I am hopeful. I'm optimistic, but I'm already nervous, and I'm going to be very nervous by the time this game starts.
You love to see it. That makes more of this, fun, having the passion and
it does
being nervous and yeah. And for me, I don't really have a team, which is awesome. I think it helps me to be a little bit, not so biased. Everyone knows I'm biased when it comes to NFL. I love my Chiefs and everything. So, but it's so fun for me. These games have just been absolutely incredible. So, all right, Jordan, I think we leave it at that. Again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you enjoyed this content. We'll be back next week, probably discussing a baseball slate. We'll transition, obviously, back to baseball. We might touch on a few NBA showdown slates as well, if the prize pools are good with that. But for Jordan, I'm AP. Let's all run here.